Hi, welcome to BPI TV. I'm Dan Stanton. I'm joined by Lars Hovmand-Lyster from Novo Nordisk. Now, Lars, you've been speaking to delegates this morning regarding closed systems. What is a closed system?
Yeah, that's a good question because I heard the talks this morning, and a lot of companies has very many different interpretation of what is actually a closed system. So I think it would be a good idea if we could agree to something in the industry. So when we are talking closed systems, we're actually talking about two separate things: the way we close a system and the way we operate the systems. So a fully closed system is maybe a single-use equipment, tanks or bags and so on coming gamma sterilized from the vendor and actually never exposed to the environment in my facility. While a functionally closed system, which is another way of closure, is maybe hybrid systems or stainless steel system where I either CIP or CIP and SIP, making it ready for operations. And then when I start operating, there isn't actually any difference between the single-use bag and the stainless steel system.
So, I mean, there's quite a bit of confusion about the definition. How do the regulators view closed systems?
Yeah, I think they have the same misalignment. And what we have tried to do in BPOC, where a lot of this, and also my presentation here is representing the work of BPOC, is actually pointing at the ISP basic guideline definitions, where they talk about closed system, open system, briefly exposed system, and functionally closed system. If you take those definitions and then get the same interpretation and maybe agree with the regulators, how do we do this, then I think we could get a fine mix of, or the same interpretation of this. As you maybe heard this morning, actually, some of the speakers were talking about completely closed systems. And I don't think that we want to introduce a fifth definition here. It is a closed system, and you can the way you close it and then you operate it closed, then we can agree on a lot of things.
But if these definitions are so undefined, how does an end user or a manufacturer prove their system is closed?
Yeah, that is maybe the hard thing, because all of the definitions in the ISP guideline talk about validation. So you should validate, make sure that you have enough or appropriate protection from the environment, and you should show it. Some guys, actually also represented in BPOC, has written an article in Pharmaceutical Engineering for ISP, and they talk about proof of closure. So I think that trying to use that tool would be a good way to work your company into an agreement, and I think that the regulators would agree that you can use this tool. I hope so, and now the article is published, and maybe we get some more feedback from regulators on that.
This interest in closed systems, is this a relatively sort of new concept, a new demand from industry and regulators, or historically, how has it worked?
Yeah, I think that if we go back in time, just maybe 5-10 years back, we didn't have the tools to explain what this actually is about, and so both the guideline from 2013 and the development of equipment that actually supports system closure has made it possible to go that way. And in our track in BPOC, we like to go you can say the full Monty, and actually say that if you have a closed system and operate it closed, then you can have any of your operations or your processes in CNC area.
So if I was a biomanufacturer and I was looking to repurpose or refit an old and aged facility, and I wanted to sort of make it install or implement a closed system, how would I go about doing that?
Yeah. I think that it depends actually on what kind of process you have. If you have cell culture processes, I think that we have a very high requirement for sanitization of that equipment. So many manufacturers would actually already have closed systems, and maybe only a few open operations where they could do something special. And then they would have the opportunity to downgrade some of the classified room, because it is, I think it's a tradition in the industry that many cell culture facilities are built with very high room classification. So you see a lot of facilities where the bioreactors are actually placed in grade C areas. And if you're trying to use some of our tools, you will see that it is way sufficiently protected by the measures you use to get the equipment sterilized before you start your operation, so that you could prove by risk assessment that CNC area is actually quite sufficient, and the C grade doesn't give any further protection.
Is this the sort of experience maybe Novo Nordisk or perhaps some of the other big biopharmas have had, obviously with older facilities, and trying to bring them up to speed or install closed systems perhaps?
I think that all of us has experienced some kind of regulatory challenges on explaining old facilities, how we are doing things, and so on. But it should be possible to actually utilize risk assessment and prove that you have a closed system, and in this way actually downgrade where you already have a classification. If you have open operations that are not sufficiently protected, you have the opportunity to trying to use some of the new tools and new kind of equipment to actually protect your process and operations better. It's possible to make a local protection or even upgrade if that's more suitable for your operations.
And are you finding the vendors and the equipment makers are adapting their technologies to help industry in this way at all, or?
I think they are helping to confuse us sometimes. We heard this morning that PAL had a completely closed system. So again, they are talking a little against some of the definitions, but I think that continuous manufacturing is actually supporting this very well. So that when we go to continuous manufacture, then we will actually have closed systems, because we don't need to open operations. Or at least we can segregate and say a large portion of the operations are closed, and maybe only protect a few open operations by appropriate means, by either local protection or by classification.
So in many ways, the more industry moves towards continuous bioprocessing, the better we'll be at being able to define and name what a closed system is, and therefore regulate it.
Yeah, I think it supports. It's really supports each other. We should just start using the same words and definitions and so on. That would be a great help, because someone would think that closed and completely closed is two different things, and I don't hope so. So it would help to use the same terms and interpretations.
And I suppose you mentioned them earlier, BPOC, the Bioforum Operations Group.
Yeah.
I suppose they're kind of leading the way at standardizing this and standardizing in a bunch of other things in the bioprocessing industry, no?
Yeah, we have a specific track on closed systems in CNC areas. So we are trying to push this as far as possible, of course. And it might be against some of the company's internal policies, but we believe that you can get sufficient protection by closing your operations, and then no need for the segregation that we know today. So you will be able to have fully processed upstream, downstream in a ballroom design. That would help and give much more flexible layouts and starting to design facilities in that way.
Well, Lars, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. For BPI TV, I'm Dan Stanton.